In our headlines on this Thursday, June 25th, here in South Korea. Today, the peninsula marks a solemn anniversary. That is the start of the Korean War 76 years ago. And at a related ceremony, President Lee Jae-myung saluted the soldiers. And the annual Jeju Forum for Peace and Prosperity is underway, with the attention this year focused on building partnerships. Meanwhile, two major earthquakes hit the Venezuelan capital city seconds apart Wednesday evening, toppling buildings and sending people out to the streets for safety. In a ceremony to mark the 76th anniversary of the start of the Korean War today, President Lee Jae-myung saluted the soldiers from Korea and their comrades from abroad, commending their selfless commitment to democracy. Our Yoon Jung-min covers his remarks.
The South Korean commander-in-chief commemorated the outbreak of the Korean War 76 years ago by attributing today's peace and prosperity to the devotion and sacrifices made by war veterans.
조국의 명운이 백척간두에 섰을 때 자신의 모든 것을 바쳐가며 전장을 누빈 영웅들의 고귀한 희생과 헌신으로 이루어진 것입니다.
President Lee Jae-myung vowed to bolster support for veterans and the bereaved families of those killed in the war, calling for extraordinary compensation for their extraordinary sacrifices. He also vowed to keep the peninsula free from any concern of conflict.
강력한 국방력으로 국민과 영토를 지키고 전쟁이 일어날 걱정도 싸울 필요도 없는 진정한 평화의 한반도를 반드시 만들어내겠습니다.
He also thanked the UN veterans, adding that their solidarity evolved into today's steadfast partnership with South Korea, and that the country bears a responsibility to repay the debt of gratitude it owes them.
유엔 참전 용사들의 한국 방문 초청을 비롯한 보훈 외교를 더욱 확대하여 참호 속에서 싹튼 영대의 정신이 미래 세대에도 살아 숨쉴 수 있도록.
On Thursday, the government confirmed awards for 3 members of the non-regular forces whose distinguished service during the Korean War had not been fully recognized. Later in the day, the president met surviving veterans for a feast to honor their devotion and sacrifices, noting South Korea's elevated global status today and the veterans' devotion along the way. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
And speaking of Korean War veterans, my colleague Kim Bo-kyung had the honor of meeting one such individual who has been working to keep the sacrifices of his comrades alive. Do take a listen.
Private First Class Han Hina served in the Korean War as a member of the reconnaissance company under the Armored Battalion of the Capital Division. Born in 1930 in Hamgyeongbuk-do province, he dreamed of becoming an engineer, but when the Korean War broke out, he fought in the Rock Army, hoping he could one day pursue his dream in a free, democratic country. He has weaved together fragments of his memories from the war that he personally experienced and published a book.
It wasn't just once or twice. I survived many times when I could have died, and even I think it's a miracle that I'm still alive. I believe I faced those moments bravely and fought hard to stay alive. I wanted future generations to learn about sacrificing for their country.
And beyond that, the man, now in his 90s, recently visited the Army Archives Management Group to donate handwritten records of battles he went through. Since 2020, it has been gathering and restoring more than 81,000 Korean War military records, with around 50,000 have been restored to date. The war veteran took a look at the restoration process and thanked the archives for their efforts and for a chance to visit the place.
The records of the Korean War contain the sacrifice and dedication of those who served before us and are an important part of our national heritage. We will preserve these records and pass them on to future generations.
Veteran Han visited the Army Headquarters Hall of Honor and found the name of Staff Sergeant Kim Byung-chil, his superior and comrade who died in his place during the Battle of Sandugoksan, one of the major mountain battles on the eastern front of the Korean War. As he gently touched Kim's name and seemed to recall those days, he saluted with respect, with tears running down his face. The memories of a war veteran, preserved through his records and writings, can help future generations understand history and reflect on the meaning of patriotism. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News, Korean.
Meanwhile, the southern Korean resort island of Jeju is hosting its annual Peace Forum this week, with the focus this year on rebuilding partnerships in a divided world. Our Moon Hye-ryun files this report.
Gathered on the southern island of Jeju on Thursday, world leaders and senior diplomats confronted a question that has grown harder to answer with each passing year: how to rebuild trust and cooperation in an increasingly fragmented world. In a pre-recorded message, President Lee Jae-myung described Jeju as a place that turned historical tragedy into reconciliation, and said the forum's mission grows more urgent as wars and global challenges deepen. It is a mission the government is now taking more seriously than ever. This year, South Korea's Ministry of Foreign Affairs joined as co-host for the first time. Speakers throughout the ceremony warned that no country can tackle climate change, artificial intelligence, or security threats alone. That warning found a sharp echo in remarks from UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres.
We meet at a deeply challenging moment for humanity. Geopolitical tensions are rising, conflicts are causing immense suffering, and it also means listening beyond the usual rooms of power, as you are doing in Jeju.
India's External Affairs Minister argued that fragmentation is now a permanent feature of the international landscape, but not necessarily an obstacle to progress.
This forum is discussing a fragmented world as a problem and reinventing cooperation as a solution. I agree with both the diagnosis and the treatment.
He argued that today's fragmentation is more complex than historical divisions, shaped not by clear strategic lines, but by intertwined forces of economic rivalry, technology competition, and eroding trust, all of which demand broader and deeper cooperation to navigate. That conversation carried into the following World Leaders session, where a panel of former heads of government debated where multilateralism has gone wrong and what middle powers can do to right it. Former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon warned that the major powers are no longer communicating as they once did, while the former Indonesian president argued that middle powers cannot remain passive. They must actively use multilateral institutions as a counterweight to great power unilateralism. Throughout the remainder of the three-day event, sessions hosted by multiple organizations will tackle the topics of AI governance, regional security, and multilateralism in more detail. Moon Hye-ryun, Arirang News, Jeju.
And South Korea is pushing to put into action plans for a second mega-scale chip cluster beyond the Greater Seoul area, backed by unprecedented state support. Our Kim Do-yeon explains.
To maintain the lead in the global AI memory chip market, Korea is moving fast to secure its next manufacturing stronghold. President Lee Jae-myung is scheduled to meet with Samsung Electronics Chairman Lee Jae-yong on Thursday behind closed doors to finalize a massive semiconductor investment outside the Greater Seoul area. This follows a similar high-level meeting with the chairman of SK Group last week. To back this estimated 400 trillion won or $260 billion project, the government issued a legislative notice on Thursday promising to cover up to 100% of the installation costs for critical infrastructure like power grids and water supply. Experts stress that expanding investments right now is a matter of survival.
We need to widen the gap so competitors cannot catch up. If you do not secure a leading position, you cannot survive. That is why expanding investments right now is absolutely critical.
And despite concerns over how long it takes to build these factories, industry veterans say the structural demand is here to stay.
The ripple effect of AI is immense, and there are currently very few alternatives to our existing semiconductor structures. For that reason, this chip demand will easily last for the next 10 to 20 years.
This explosive demand is rapidly accelerating existing factory timelines in the capital region by a full decade, forcing the government to urgently look south.
because the construction timelines in the capital region are being heavily accelerated. The Greater Seoul area will completely run out of land, power, and water by 2035. To support the global AI revolution without disruption, we have to find a massive new site. Discussions on providing this location and infrastructure are in their final stages.
According to reports, the finalized national semiconductor strategy as part of balanced regional growth is scheduled to be officially announced next week. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
In other news, the benchmark KOSPI reclaimed the 9,000 mark during trade on this Thursday before closing slightly lower at 8,930. Shortly after opening bell, the accelerated rally activated this year's 15th buy-side sidecar. A strong earnings report from U.S. memory chip giant Micron fueled optimism in chip giants, with SK Hynix soaring 15%. Institutional investors drove the rally, while foreign and retail investors were net sellers. Meanwhile, the Nasdaq reversed course and closed down more than 2%. The National Assembly opened a confirmation hearing today for Prime Minister nominee Han Sang-suk. In her opening remarks, Han pledged to prioritize an AI-driven economic transformation and to serve as a bridge between the government and parliament. The main opposition People Power Party pressed Han on her ownership of multiple properties, questioning whether the ownership is consistent with the Lee administration's stance against multi-home ownership. The ruling Democratic Party dismissed the question as politically motivated, arguing Han had already undergone thorough vetting during her tenure as Minister of SMEs and Startups. Two powerful tremors hit Venezuela Wednesday evening, taking over 30 lives and hurting some 700 others while toppling buildings. Our Park Chae-ryung reports.
Two powerful earthquakes struck western Venezuela on Wednesday just after 6 p.m. local time, causing at least 32 casualties and injuring about 700 people. The first, a magnitude 7.2 quake, hit about 160 kilometers west of Caracas. Less than a minute later, a 7.5 tremor brought down buildings, trapping people under rubble and leaving the authorities bracing for heavy casualties. Video footage showed emergency workers climbing through the ruins of a collapsed building in the capital, while distraught relatives sought help for loved ones believed to be trapped. Residents across the region expressed fear and anxiety.
I was really shocked. It was unbelievable. You can see how everyone around here is reacting. We're all scared. People are afraid to go back into their homes.
The U.S. Geological Survey said their model estimated a 39% chance the number of dead is between 1,000 and 10,000, and a 37% chance the figure lies between 10,000 and 100,000. The estimated economic losses are between 1 and 4% of Venezuela's GDP. Venezuela's interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, declared a national state of emergency following the powerful earthquakes and more than 20 aftershocks. She added that the number of casualties is expected to rise as rescue workers continue searching through the rubble. Meanwhile, a powerful earthquake also struck northern Japan on Thursday morning. According to the Japan Meteorological Agency, the magnitude 6.9 quake occurred off the eastern coast of Iwate Prefecture in the northeastern Tohoku region. The agency said there was no danger of tsunami. Japanese officials said slight sea level fluctuations could occur along the coast, but there was no risk of tsunami damage. Park Chae-ryung, Arirang News.
Also on the international front, delegates from Washington and Tehran are scheduled to sit down for more technical talks in Switzerland next week against the backdrop of discrepancies over Lebanon, nuclear inspections and transit tolls. Our Kim Jun-ong has the latest.
Technical-level negotiations between the United States and Iran are set to resume in Switzerland next week.
Pakistan's foreign ministry said Wednesday that the two sides will return to the negotiating table within days, after hours of discussions in Bergenstock on Monday. It described the current pause as temporary and said Pakistan and Qatar will continue their mediation efforts. Lebanon remains a key obstacle. Tehran again called on Israel to pull its forces out of southern Lebanon, describing a ceasefire there as essential.
For us, a ceasefire and an end to the war in Lebanon are just as important to us as a ceasefire and an end to the war are to Iran.
Israel, however, says its troops will remain in place. Nuclear inspections have also become a sticking point. The International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA, said it plans to resume inspections in Iran soon to verify the location of the country's highly enriched uranium.
This has been signed, has been agreed. Paragraph 8 of this Memorandum of Understanding says explicitly that the nuclear activities that are going to be carried out with regards to the nuclear material facilities and will be supervised by the IAEA.
Iran, however, denied agreeing to the inspections, while U.S. President Donald Trump told Fox News that American inspectors would join the IAEA mission. Despite the remaining differences, Trump voiced optimism, saying on the same day that Iran was making very big concessions in the negotiations.
As you know, we're winning by a lot. Iran is making very big concessions. We'll see what happens, but it's been very, very, very powerful. It's going very, very well.
He later wrote on Truth Social that Iran had confirmed it would not charge ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz. Secretary of State Marco Rubio also said during his Middle East tour that the strait is an international waterway where no country can charge for passage. Kim Jun-hong, Arirang News.
And global oil prices tumbled on optimism about the future of sea traffic in the Strait of Hormuz, while the U.S. stock market ended its latest session mixed. Our Lee Sing-jae has the closing numbers.
Global oil prices fell to their lowest levels since before the outbreak of the Iran war on Wednesday, as concerns over disruptions to shipping through the Strait of Hormuz continued to ease. Brent crude, the international benchmark, dropped nearly 5% to $73.50 a barrel during intraday trading, its lowest level since February 27th. U.S. benchmark West Texas Intermediate fell 3.8% to $70.43 a barrel, briefly dipping below the $70 mark during the session. The decline came after the International Maritime Organization announced that Iran and Oman would begin coordinating a large-scale evacuation of more than 11,000 stranded seafarers through the Strait of Hormuz. The move reassured markets that a key global shipping route could remain operational despite ongoing tensions in the region. Meanwhile, U.S. stocks ended mixed as investors remained cautious ahead of earnings from memory chip maker Micron Technology. Selling pressure continued in technology shares, particularly among artificial intelligence-related companies and other major tech names. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 182 points, or 0.35%, while the S&P 500 slipped 0.1%. The tech-heavy Nasdaq fell 0.43%. Not all sectors moved lower. Airline and travel stocks gained ground as falling oil prices raised hopes for lower fuel costs and improved profitability. After the closing bell, however, attention quickly shifted to Micron Technology. The memory chip maker reported another record-breaking quarter, fueled by surging demand for AI-related semiconductors. Micron said fiscal third-quarter revenue reached $41.46 billion for March to May period. The results easily exceeded market expectations and reinforced optimism about continued growth in AI infrastructure spending. Investors responded enthusiastically, sending Micron shares soaring by more than 15% in after-hours trading, which could provide a potential boost for the broader technology sector when markets reopen. Lee Sing-jae, Arirang News.
And 5 more Korean vessels carrying 21 Koreans have passed through the Strait of Hormuz in light of the US-Iran MOU. According to the Oceans Ministry on this Thursday, this latest passage leaves behind 13 Korean ships inside the strait. That being said, 87 Korean crew members remain in the area, with 33 of them working on foreign-flagged ships. A Korean crude oil tanker also transited the Red Sea on the same day, becoming the 10th to seek an alternate waterway amid traffic disruption in the Strait of Hormuz. On the FIFA arena, Team Korea lost its decisive group stage match to South Africa. Our Cho Young uncovers its latest game.
South Korea's final World Cup group stage match against South Africa ended in a loss. Bong Myung-bo's side began aggressively, with Oh Hyung-kyu leading the attack and Hwang Hee-chan deployed on the left wing, but their efforts fell short. South Africa broke the deadlock on 63 minutes through Tapelo Masiko on the counterattack. South Korea pushed for an equalizer, but was unable to find a breakthrough. Mexico topped the group with 3 consecutive victories, while South Africa secured a second place with 4 points from 1 win, 1 draw, and 1 loss. Having missed out to the round of 32 as group runners-up, the Taeguk Warriors must now wait for the remaining group stage results, as a knockout berth could still be earned if Korea finishes among the 8 best third-place teams. Naturally, fans were left disappointed.
I came here expecting a win, so I'm disappointed with the result. But the players worked incredibly hard, and I was still able to enjoy supporting the team.
It's disappointing, but the players gave everything on the pitch. I just hope things work out in our favor and that we can make it to the round of 32.
Although the result fell short of supporters' expectations, many fans continued to cheer and maintain their faith even after the final whistle. Known as chimek, a combination of fried chicken and beer, gathering to watch football has become a tradition during major tournaments. The nationwide cheering campaign once again offered a glimpse into Korea's unique football culture and the passion of the supporters even early on a weekday morning.
Many supporters turned restaurants and pubs into lively cheering zones, applauding the players' efforts and showing their support despite the defeats. Cho Young-eun, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. A deadly heat wave tightened its grip on Western Europe on Wednesday, killing dozens, straining power grids, and shutting schools and landmarks as forecasters warn that the extreme temperatures driven by the Omega block could last until the weekend. Britain set a new June record of 36.1 degrees Celsius in southern England, while Paris hit 40.9 degrees a day after France recorded its hottest day in nearly 80 years. At least 48 people have drowned in France while trying to cool off, and 2 young children died in a hot car. The heat killed hundreds of thousands of animals at French poultry farms. Major landmarks, including the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre, also announced early closures. Meanwhile, Italy placed 16 cities on its highest alert. Meteorologists likened the conditions to the 2003 heat wave that caused an estimated 80,000 deaths across Europe, warning Europe is warming at twice the global average. France confirmed its first Ebola case on Wednesday in a doctor who recently returned from a humanitarian mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo. French authorities placed the doctor in isolation and identified the 5 passengers seated near him on the flight to France. The French Health Ministry said the risk to the wider European population remains low. The World Health Organization chief urged against panic, saying that fewer than 30 Ebola cases have been detected outside Africa in the past 50 years. Congo's outbreak of the rare Bundibugyo strain has now infected 1,118 people and killed 291, the most confirmed cases within the first month of any Ebola episode on record. Keiko Fujimori will become Peru's first elected female president on her fourth attempt after taking an unbeatable lead with nearly 98% of votes counted on Tuesday. Fujimori narrowly defeated leftist Congressman Roberto Sanchez in a June runoff in one of the closest elections in the country's history. Sanchez has alleged fraud and refused to recognize the result, though international observers said both rounds proceeded normally. The daughter of former President Alberto Fujimori, who governed in the 1990s and was later imprisoned for human rights abuses, has proposed reviving a controversial faceless judges system and closer ties with Washington. Her 5-year term begins on July 28th. Ju Ji-han, Arirang News.
You'll want to keep an umbrella handy on your way home. There are more clouds across the country today, bringing scattered showers, and these showers will continue through tomorrow morning. Rainfall amounts will vary significantly by region, ranging from 5 to as much as 80 millimeters. Tomorrow, ozone levels are expected to reach bad levels in some areas, and UV levels will be very high nationwide. Some parts of the Jeollado provinces, Gwangju, as well as Jinju in Gyeongsangnam-do province and Jeju Island will see UV levels reach the extreme category. So be sure to wear sunscreen and try to stay out of direct sunlight whenever possible. As for temperatures, Seoul will start the day at 18 degrees, Chuncheon at 16 degrees, Busan at 20 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 30 degrees, Daegu 28 degrees, Gwangju 29 degrees. Looking ahead to the weekend, skies will be mostly clear across the country. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. As always, thank you for watching.